Hi there, I'm Zach Kircher, and you're watching Kircher Talks Entertainment. Hey guys, it's been a little while. It's not like I've had a shortage of things to talk about lately. I mean, that couldn't be further from the truth, to be honest with you. I've had a lot of ideas cooking in my head, it's just, for a handful of reasons, I kinda just needed a break from making YouTube videos for a bit. I hope I can talk about that in a video sometime in the near future. But something like PlayStation making some of the most frustratingly anti-consumer decisions in the history of the gaming industry was enough to snap me out of my quick break. So I am here, and let's get into it. Many of you who clicked on this video probably have already heard about this, but at the beginning of this month, Sony announced this on the official PlayStation blog. As consumer preferences and the broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical disc to digital, physical game production for all new games releasing on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting January 2028. Following this date, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. This transition has no impact on games that already released or will be releasing prior to January 2028 in disc format.
That is one big pile of shit.
I mean, that announcement alone is enough to royally piss me off. But the sins that Sony has committed against a consumer's right to ownership do not end there, oh no. Shall I continue? PlayStation also came under fire recently for announcing that as of September 1st, 551 movies will not only no longer be available for European PlayStation users to buy, but anyone who already purchased those movies will completely lose access to them. That means, hypothetically, if someone living in the European Union had purchased all 551 of those movies at full price, assuming an average price of like $20 per movie, that is roughly $11,000 worth of product that is just poof, gone, like Thanos snapped out of existence. Now, I am not one to skew the truth on things, so I'll throw PlayStation a small bone here and say that what they're doing is technically legal, but that doesn't mean that it's ethical or morally right, in my opinion. The reality is that whenever you purchase a movie on a digital storefront, whether it be PlayStation, Amazon, Fandango at home, or whatever it is, you're not actually entitled to full ownership of that media. What you're actually doing is just buying a license for the privilege to watch that movie for as long as the storefront has a license to stream it to you. And yes, that is the same for if you buy a game digitally as well. In the case of this PlayStation issue, their license from French film distributor Studio Canal is expiring, so European PlayStation users who own licenses to any of those 551 movies will simply lose access to them forever. No refunds, no credits to future purchases,
and no questions asked.
And believe me, it does not stop there. On the same day that PlayStation announced that they would cease production of physical game discs, they announced that the digital storefronts for both the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita would shut down in phases throughout the rest of this year. This is nothing new when it comes to console gaming, for storefronts on older Nintendo and Xbox consoles were also shut down over the past few years, but that doesn't ease the pain. Anyone who missed out on the chance to play console-exclusive games that were only ever available digitally will simply never get the chance to. At least they'll never get the chance to do so legally. So yeah, those three announcements all coming out roughly at the same time were a hard pill to swallow for us PlayStation users. It especially sucks since, unlike Sony, I actually remember the reason why me and so many others switched from being Xbox users in the mid-2010s. In case you don't know or don't remember what I'm talking about though, let's rewind for a bit. Back in the summer of 2013, right after I graduated high school, we gamers were eagerly awaiting the reveals for the next Xbox and PlayStation consoles. I, in particular, was excited to hear about the next Xbox since I was a loyal Xbox 360 user when I was in high school. For many reasons that I won't all go into, the reveal of the Xbox One was such a disaster that Microsoft is still reeling from their mistakes to this very day.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360, that's your message if you don't like it?
What have I done?
But of all the many baffling choices that Microsoft was making with the design of the Xbox One, perhaps the one that pissed people off the most, including me, was that physical media was going to be exclusively tied for use on a single console. That meant that if you bought a disc for the newest Halo game, you could only install it on a single Xbox and it could not be used on any other console, since your license to that product would be tied to your specific device. In other words, you would not be able to borrow a game from a friend or a family member, they in turn would not be able to borrow a game from you, and buying a used copy of a game from somewhere like GameStop or a local secondhand media store would be pointless. All of this opened the floodgates for Sony to take a dump on Microsoft in what is perhaps the greatest video game commercial of all time.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
In 15 seconds, Sony beat Microsoft to the point that they could never recover from. While Microsoft was throwing a free throw into their own basket from across the court, Sony made a slam dunk 10 times over. The sales figures for the PS4 and PS5, as opposed to the Xbox One and the Series consoles, are proof enough of this. As for me, I switched to PlayStation with no regrets until now. Here we are now, 13 years after the reveal of the PS4, and Sony has now become the very entity that they mocked Microsoft for being back then. And no, I wasn't going to be generous by referencing the Obi-Wan quote from Revenge of the Sith where he says Anakin became the very thing he swore to destroy, because let's be honest, Sony never made that decision with the PS4 out of kindness.
Kindness! Kindness!
Sony is a massive, publicly traded corporation that is only incentivized to do that, which drives up value for their shareholders. If history played out differently and people didn't make such a big stink about Microsoft requiring things like an always online console and restrictions on physical media, PlayStation probably would have followed suit. But since Microsoft revealed the Xbox One a few weeks before Sony planned on revealing the PS4, that gave Sony just enough time to play their hand. It ultimately worked out in their favor, since people like me fell head over heels for PlayStation when that happened.
PlayStation 4 won't impose any new restrictions on the use of PS4 game discs.
But that isn't to say that Sony wasn't working up to this inevitable change. They've been making baby steps towards removing our rights to ownership for years now. The PS5 launched in 2020 with 2 models, the cheaper one being manufactured without a disk drive. A few years later, they launched the PS5 Pro, which also didn't feature a disk drive. But Sony offered an attachable one for $80.
Excellent!
As if paying $900 for a PS5 Pro wasn't enough, right? It also didn't help that even as physical media has remained a thing for video games even in this very digital age, some publishers released their games without printing all of the data files onto the disc. For some games, you would still need to complete the rest of the installation by connecting to the internet and downloading the remaining files from a server. And now, there's this. Physical media for PlayStation just going away entirely. That just sucks, man. Look, I recognize that we've been moving to an all-digital future for a while now. Deep down inside, I knew that us collectors of physical media were living on borrowed time. But it's by no accident that this happened. I mean, it's obvious that Sony wanted this for a long time, and it's only after pre-orders started for the discless cases for Grand Theft Auto 6 that they found the right moment to put all of their plans into motion. If arguably the biggest video game launch in history can move forward without physical media, that's enough proof that they don't need to make them anymore, right? But ultimately, why does all of this matter? I mean, we can argue semantics and sales figures, but at the end of the day, it is true that millions of gamers across the world, which does include me, buy games digitally. So if the gaming market already exists in the way that it does, why should it matter if physical media goes away for PlayStation? It's all about control. A free market is at its best when there is competition to offer the best value at the best price for the average person who's lining up with cash to buy a product or a service. Within the context of video games, if you have a hotly anticipated title like Wolverine by Insomniac, more than likely its retail price is going to be $70 in the US, at least before tax. However, hypothetically, if your local Walmart would be running a day one release special to pick up a copy for $50, I'd be willing to wager that you'd rather go pick that up as opposed to buying it elsewhere, even if it's available digitally. In my opinion, getting my butt off my couch and going to Walmart, as much as I hate that place, would be well worth saving $20 for a game that I would actually own. Would something like that actually happen? Maybe not, but my point is that you need competition in the marketplace to drive sales, and physical media allows for that. It's better for you and the economy as a whole, for secondhand media stores can provide a lot of value to someone who wants to buy certain games, but maybe doesn't have the money for it at the time it releases. Take it from me, the grand majority of my collection, both for video games and movies, mind you, consists of used copies. For example, there used to be this store in Mesa called the House of Used, which had this amazing ongoing deal I took advantage of countless times. Basically, for every 4 items I bought, the cheapest item in that, bundle of things that I took to the register would be free. Once you stop producing physical media, whether it be DVDs and Blu-rays for movies, video game discs, vinyl, CD albums, or whatever, that drives up the demand and price for secondhand media. Knowing how expensive retro gaming already is, imagine how much more so it will be in the coming years once you can no longer get used copies for new games. You'll have no choice but to buy new games digitally, since that may be the quote-unquote cheaper option, and that is by design. PlayStation talks about how they want to provide more purchasing options for their consumers, and yet they do that by removing options and putting their customers into a corner. If you're a PlayStation user, once 2028 comes around and your only choice will be to go to the PlayStation Store, and if you ever think there'll be significant sales on that storefront,
you have another thing coming.
Death, that
looks that way!
Sales on the PlayStation Store do happen on occasion, but they are infrequent and they aren't that impactful. Sales are also often locked behind the paywall of being a subscriber to PlayStation Plus. There are a fair amount of games on the PlayStation Store that are selling at the same price that they did at launch, whereas if you looked at a website like Amazon, those same games might be 50% or less expensive, even for a brand new physical copy. Yes, I know in that case you'd still be paying money to another evil corporation, but let's face it, in this world, your choices for how you spend your money sometimes boil down to just which company is the lesser evil. I'd rather put my money towards Amazon that provides an amazing service and actually has fair prices for things, rather than PlayStation where they actively try to stifle any semblance of power that you and I as paying customers have. PlayStation getting rid of physical media goes beyond losing the privilege of owning games that you can actually feel and touch, though. It's a move that only benefits them in the long run, not you and I. They would have full control over pricing, they save money by not spending so much on printing and distributing discs around the world, they earn a heck of a lot more commission on game sales since they take a 30% cut on every third-party game sold, not to mention that they keep 100% of the revenue from their own games, and we ultimately pay more for everything as the costs of games and hardware continue to rise. If it's really true that the computer component crisis is just going to keep getting worse due to AI data centers swallowing up all of the RAM and the GPUs, then we may be looking at the next PlayStation and Xbox being the price of a decent PC. If these consoles are going to cost as much as PCs, and they're not going to support physical media, at this point why not just get a PC anyway? After all, consider what PC gaming gives you. Online multiplayer is completely free. You have access to multiple storefronts that compete against each other. You can easily mod your own system and upgrade it over time. Not to mention that there's Steam as well, which is far and away the best option we have for buying games digitally. Yes, I know that it still presents the problem of buying games digitally, where you're ultimately paying for licenses to play games that you download from a server. But at least when you purchase games that eventually get delisted for whatever reason, Valve keeps those purchases in your library, like Spec Ops: The Line or Strong Bad's Cool Game for Attractive People in my case. I've also gotten a lot of value out of Steam's family sharing feature, where you can build a group of up to 6 different users who share game licenses with each other. Valve is far from a perfect company, but the ease by which you can use their service, their consumer-friendly store policies, and the fact that your purchases can't be taken away from you make it a significantly better alternative in the digital gaming space. Of course, if you want complete control over the games that you buy, you can always purchase DRM-free titles from GOG, and you can even print those files onto discs if you so desire. In any case, at the end of all this, Sony seems to be fully committed to this horrendous decision. No matter the disastrous backlash that they've received across social media, and even from their own trusted industry partners, they are moving forward with this. It even seems like they knew that this would cause a storm in the gaming community, given some of the things that have come out from current and former PlayStation employees. But yes, a digital future from PlayStation is coming, and it doesn't sound like there's anything we can do about it. Or is there? The irrefutable solution to voicing your opinion against any bad business decision is to just stop buying what they're selling you. So that's what I'm going to do. The PlayStation 5 is the last gaming hardware from Sony that I will ever own. I also canceled my subscription to PlayStation Plus. This decision didn't come lightly, for I've accumulated probably 40 or so games from the monthly title drops over the years. But honestly, after giving it some thought, most of the games that I got with PS Plus were ones that I only would have played because they were free with the service. The only games I actually would want to play were subsequently added to my Steam wishlist, aside from Balatro, which I just straight up purchased a license for my PS5 copy. Local Thunk more than earned my money for how many hours I put into that game. Anyway, the true reason I kept my subscription active was for playing Helldivers 2 with my friends. But even then, I'd only reached level 30 after nearly 2.5 years of owning the game, so I decided to migrate over to the PC version. My brother-in-law already owns a copy in our shared game library, like I mentioned earlier, so I didn't have to pay anything extra to hop back in. It'll suck to have to require a lot of my preferred weapons and gear, but it's worth it to me in the long run if it saves me money and gets me out of the PlayStation ecosystem. Last but not least, I am subscribed to a paid tier of Crunchyroll, which Sony owns. Once I'm done watching a certain show that I may or may not make a video about later this year, I'll cancel that subscription too. At this point, if I buy any more games for the PS5 that I already own, I'm only getting physical games made by third-party developers. But if you're like me and absolutely detest what Sony is doing here, then vote with your wallet like I am. I know that I'm just one guy who is speaking up and taking action, so a massive corporation like Sony isn't really going to be hurt by just my choices as a consumer. If you've been watching this video though, which if you have, and you stick with it right to the very end, leave a green heart emoji in your comments so they know that you're a real one. Thanks. Then you'll know that there are many other people like me who have sworn off PlayStation forever. One voice speaking up against Sony won't mean much, but if we band together and reject them by not buying what they're selling, then that's where they'll really feel the weight of their mistakes.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Doing both of those things really does help my channel grow, and I will see you all in the next one.